Welcome, Gunrunner.
Just over 2 years ago, I made a video looking at consoles that were able to play games from rival systems, be it via adapters or the actual hardware itself. And when I did my recent video looking at obscure home computers, it occurred to me that there was an opportunity to do a follow-up video that combines the two subjects: obscure home computers that were also able to play games from rival consoles. So that's exactly what we're going to be looking at here. 7 such examples in fact. Serious home micros that could be transformed into much more attractive, well, for kids anyway, games machines with just the flick of a switch. These computers hail from all parts of the world, and you'll notice that many of them are also closely related to others on the list, which draws some interesting parallels. But that's it really. There isn't really a lot more to say in this intro, and I'd rather just get on with the feature presentation as I proudly unveil 7 computers that could play games from rival consoles.
Dick Smith, the electronic wizard in the electronic land of Oz.
We are the Dick Smiths, whiz kids, and we watch the wizard because...
Why?
Look, speak and spell. TV games, wow.
CD radios, blocking stereo, electronic funway.
And kids, unreal handheld games. Computers.
Walkie-talkies, experimenters books.
The Dick Smith Wizards.
And because I import direct, I'm normally lots cheaper, so you'd be crazy to go anywhere else. And kids, remember, even if your mums and dads don't understand electronics, you can bring them with you. You mean I can be a Dick Smith whiz kid too?
Dick Smith, the electronic wizard in the electronic land of Oz.
And there's a store near you.
Dick Smith.
So let's start off with one of the most unknown and undocumented computers on this list. And for that reason, one of the most interesting ones too, especially when you find out just what this Taiwanese home micro from 1983 can do. The BIT Corporation BIT60 is also slightly different to all the other entries on this list in the way it's designed, and it could be argued that it doesn't entirely fit the premise here, but I think it still just about qualifies. You see, the BIT60 is a home computer that's entirely based on the hardware found in the Atari 2600 console, and fully compatible with the video computer system because of that. However, there are some differences, mainly to make it more usable as a home micro, that are worth discussing in a bit more detail. So instead of the cut-down 6507 CPU of the Atari 2600, there is a full-fat MOS 6502. The RAM has been upped considerably to a still pretty small 2K, although this can be expanded to a much more respectable 32K, and it has a new custom ROM that includes a version of the basic programming language. Early models featured a rubber chiclet style keyboard much like the ZX Spectrum, whilst the later rarer models came with a proper typewriter style keyboard instead. There was also 2 joystick sockets, cartridge slot, and ports to connect up tape decks and disk drives, and this is very important and a big selling point of this home micro. You see, one of the key ways that Bitcorp promoted this computer was as a money-making machine that could be used to create your own Atari 2600 games, and indeed, it's been said that the BIT60 was first created by the Taiwanese company to do specifically that, with all their own Atari 2600 games, which includes the likes of Bobby Is Going Home and Open Sesame, being coded on the computer and then transformed onto carts. Unfortunately, these computers are now so rare and so obscure that it's almost impossible to delve into the actual operations and usability of this computer further, but I'd certainly love to dig into this one a bit deeper someday in the future. And this one leads on seamlessly from the last, because you would have already seen it in one of the adverts that I showed, as the BIT90 was the more powerful sibling of the BIT60, but despite the similar names suggesting otherwise, this is a very different beast indeed. Now, anyone who is familiar with BIT Corporation will know that as well as being big supporters of the Atari 2600, they were also the only major company outside of North America to support the rival ColecoVision 2. not just with games like Strike It and Cosmic Crisis, but also by producing the DINA 2-in-1 console. A clone that could play both ColecoVision and Sega SG-1000 cartridges thanks to the similar hardware. But I won't go into this anymore here, as I've featured the console many times before on this channel, and I'll drop a link in the description for those who want to know more. But the existence of the DINA 2-in-1 is important here, because it wasn't the only ColecoVision console produced by Bitcorp, as, yes, you guessed it, the BIT-90 is also based on that very same MSX-like hardware. But whereas the BIT-60 features some pretty significant upgrades over the base hardware, this one doesn't, remaining almost identical to the Coleco console in its specification. Of course, it's worth noting at this point that Coleco also turned their console into a home computer themselves too, in the form of the failed Adam. But that's a story for another video. The biggest advantage here is the expansion bus at the back that can be used to add RAM packs, printers, disk drives and other storage devices. Like the BIT-60, it also has the basic programming language in ROM and can be used to write ColecoVision compatible games, if you're that way inclined. Again, it came with a simple chiclet style keyboard with a much later and much rarer model coming with a proper keyboard instead. Bit Corporation also sold an additional adapter that allowed you to play Atari 2600 games on the computer too, much like the expansion Module 1. What really did interest me about the BIT-90 is that it appears to have also been sold in both the Netherlands and Germany, making it much easier to find. Although the BIT-60 is also shown in the same German advert I showed earlier, there doesn't seem to be any evidence they were ever actually sold there, whereas people do have European BIT-90s in their collections. This is another entry that leads on perfectly from the last, also being ColecoVision related, but takes on a very different form indeed, as rather than being an all-in-one unit, what we are looking at here is an add-on that expands an existing home computer. Released in 1983, the Spectra Video SV603 is a special adapter that allows both the Spectra Video, SVI 318 and SVI 328 computers to play ColecoVision cartridges. Now those who know the history of Spectra Video and their range of home computers will know that they were very instrumental in the development of what became the MSX standard, only pulling out of the project just prior to completion to forge their own path. Because of this, both the SVI 318 and its more powerful sibling, the SVI 328, are almost identical to the MSX at a hardware level, with the main changes being found in the system ROM. Indeed, the later Spectra Video SVI 728 computer was fully MSX compatible, whilst remaining backwards compatible with its predecessors. Spectra Video also supported both the MSX and ColecoVision with conversions of the SVI games too, with great titles like Super Cross Force and Flipper Slipper amongst them, because it was so easy to port them over. This hardware similarity with the MSX also made it very close to ColecoVision 2 of course, making the creation of such an adapter rather simple. That said, they did have to provide a Coleco compatible ROM on the board, as well as the BIOS and 2 compatible joystick ports, making it a bit bulkier than you might imagine. This adapter proved pretty useful to those who bought a SpectraVision computer, as its relative lack of success meant that games were very few and far between, making such an add-on a must-have addition, as we all know what a great games library the ColecoVision has. And next we have yet another ColecoVision compatible computer that comes with a very similar story to the last entry, as the Laser 2001, produced by Hong Kong based company VTEC, who are most famous for their range of computers and consoles aimed specifically at young kids, is another computer that has many similarities with the MSX standard too, although less so than the Spectra Video Micros we just looked at. What is particularly interesting about the VTEC Laser is that its hardware was also available in console based form too, a bit like Sega's SG-1000 and SC-3000, where it was known as the VTEC CreatiVision, or the Dick Smith Wizard in Australasia, and Funvision computer video game system in parts of Europe, amongst other names too. As I mentioned, the hardware contained within the Laser 2001 shares a number of similarities with the Coleco produced console. It features an almost identical Texas Instruments video processor, the same sound chip, and a similar memory setup. The only real change being a Rockwell 6502 processor in place of the ColecoVision Zilog Z80 CPU. VTEC's ColecoVision converter would be made available for both the Laser 2001 as well as later models of the Creative Vision 2. Earlier models would need modding for it to work, but the very limited distribution of the computer and its lack of success meant that they were very hard to find. So much so that many people even doubted that they were released until several showed up in more recent years. It's also interesting to note that Coleco Industries didn't take any legal action against any of the companies who produced ColecoVision compatible computers and adapters, no doubt due to the hardware almost solely comprising of off-the-shelf parts, making it relatively easy to replicate. For many Sega enthusiasts out there, the Terror Drive, and indeed its European cousin, the Amstrad Mega PC, which I'll mention in due course, is the ultimate dream machine. A full-blown PC compatible that can also play Sega Mega Drive cartridges. I mean, what's not to love about that? Manufactured by IBM and designed by Sega, it's certainly a very sexy looking system. However, it was crippled somewhat by a litany of issues that very much counteracted its interesting hybrid design. The biggest of these was that it used an Intel 286 CPU, which was almost 10 years out of date by the time the Terror Drive arrived in 1991. It's also been noted that due to the rather compact design of the system, it was very prone to overheating and couldn't be expanded internally. It was hoped that people would develop games and other software that could utilise both the PC and Mega Drive hardware at once. But outside of the bundle package, which included a simplified falling block puzzler with an additional game editor, none was ever released. A huge missed opportunity on Sega's behalf, I'm sure you'll agree. Although Sega and IBM planned to release a much more powerful Terror Drive 2, the huge failure of the original system meant that these plans were soon cancelled. This makes the Terror Drive incredibly rare, and it now fetches very high prices on the odd occasion it appears on online auction sites. Meanwhile, in Europe, leading British PC manufacturer Amstrad, who had already experienced huge success with both the home-focused CPC range and office-orientated PCW, saw the idea of the Terror Drive and approached Sega to come up with something very similar for the West. However, rather than using the existing design, Amstrad came up with something that, despite being much cheaper to produce, was far less underpowered in the PC area. The Mega PC was also far more robust than Sega's own Terror Drive, with much more efficient air circulation, and came complete with monitor, stereo speakers, Mega PC branded joypad and mouse. In terms of the actual hardware, the original model featured a 32-bit Intel 386 SX CPU running at 25 MHz, 1MB of expandable RAM, SVGA graphics with 256K of video RAM, 40MB hard drive, 3.5-inch internal floppy disk drive, MS-DOS 5.0 and the Mega Drive hardware itself on a separate ISA card. The later Mega Plus model would use a 33MHz 486 SX processor instead, but unlike the Terror Drive, the Mega PC was unable to act as a software development kit due to its inability to use the PC and the Mega Drive hardware simultaneously. A sliding cover on the front of the unit prevented the insertion of a Mega Drive game cartridge whilst using the PC hardware. The one thing it did have in common with its Japanese sibling was the high cost, and this is what ultimately stunted its success. It launched in 1993 at an eye-watering price of £999.99, and even when the price was eventually lowered to a much more reasonable £599.99, it still failed to sell, as by this time the Mega Drive consoles could be bought for less than £100 and much more powerful PC technology had become available. Like most of the other computers on this list, complete Mega PCs are now very hard to find and highly coveted by collectors. Of all the computers on this list, the Sharp X1 Twin CZ830C, to give the computer its full and very long-winded name, is the most interesting to me. Not just because of its incredibly stylish looks, that is one sexy looking computer and I'm sure you'll agree, but also because of what it can actually do, and that's why I've saved this one until last. As the name obviously suggests, this black unit combines the popular Japanese Sharp X1 computer with another totally different system, in this case the NEC PC Engine console. What is most incredible about this is that in the Japanese computer market, NEC were one of Sharp's biggest rivals, with both their PC88 and PC98 ranges. It really makes you wonder how a deal like this came about in the first place, especially when you consider that Sharp already had an agreement in place with Nintendo that saw them produce the Famicom Twin console, which combines the base unit along with the Famicom disk system into one sleek looking box. Released in 1987 for the cost of 99,800 yen, it could play Sharp X1 and X1 Turbo games via the built-in 3.5-inch floppy disk drive, as well as standard PC Engine Hue cards via the front slot, and also featured built-in controller ports, volume control, stereo audio output, and all your other standard TV monitoring expansion ports. Unfortunately, much like the Amstrad Mega PC before it, there was no way to use both the PC Engine and Sharp X1 hardware at once, so there was no specific software aimed at this computer. These were never sold in large numbers due to the high cost, and are now very rare and sought after by collectors.
New life now.
I will show you.
君はもうパソコンテレビに触れたか。コンピュータとテレビとの結合がブラウン管をいよいよエキサイティングにする。どこまで広がる新映像。アクティブタイプ、プロフェッショナルタイプを加えてシャープパソコンテレビ。
And that rounds up my look at 7 computers that can play games from rival consoles. Can you think of any other computers that fit this hybrid billing that could have been included on this list, or did you actually own one of these and want to tell me your own experiences? As always, I love to hear the thoughts and views of my audience, so please get typing in that comment section. Before I go though, I must thank all of my loyal patrons for continuing to support my channel and make videos like this possible. However, I must give special thanks to following patrons and YouTube backers in particular for their much appreciated pledges. Grady Haynes, Mitchell Valentino, Seth A. Robinson, Carl Olsen, Dos Gamerman, Sonic Mania 999, Paul Daniel, Andrew McKay, Retro Resolution, Matt Standish, James Taylor, Trogdor the Burninator, Mins, 8-Bit Guy, Luke MC, Ben P. Stein, Tabby Kitsune, and Electron Star Collapse. If you also want to help support all my creative endeavours, including this YouTube channel, then please go and check out my Patreon right now. You can get access to host extra content, including downloads, exclusive videos, creative insights, and much more besides. I've been the Laird, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again for another video very soon.